Well, welcome to our virtual expert series focused on women role models in agricultural leadership, education, and communications. Today we have Brenda Seevers, a professor at New Mexico State University, to share her experience with us. Brenda?
Thanks, Teresa, and thank you everyone for including me as a part of this experience. So I'll do my best here to share a little words of wisdom of things that have happened to me. So I chose to title this topic, Life is Good, or Spreading the Power of Optimism. And hopefully by the time we're done, you'll get a little bit of my philosophy as well as a chance to see some of the experiences and opportunities that I've had. So I thought I would introduce myself to you to begin with. I've been at New Mexico State for over 21 years, probably the longest I've been anywhere. I started my professional career as a county extension agent working with the 4-H program in Saratoga, New York. From there, I moved to Wyoming. We talk about cultural shock. You know, that was a huge difference in moving into a western state, and I was on the state 4-H staff there. I had an opportunity in Wyoming to be part of a leadership development program where they encouraged you to further your education. So I then went to Ohio State University, got my doctorate in agriculture education at Ohio State. And I've been, after completing that, I've been at New Mexico State ever since. So again, that's when I started here in 1991. I have lots of interests. I don't know about spare time because like students and other professionals, you still don't have a lot of spare time, but I love animals. I love to travel. And if I do find some spare time, I like to read a little bit. One of the things I like to do with my students that's kind of fun, and you'll see that on the next slide, I always like to give them a chance to know a little bit about who I am outside of the classroom. So given those particular interests that I have, I sometimes give them a little quiz the first day of class and ask them to and ask any questions that they want about me. So I put just a few questions on the slides of, you know, so that they can get to know who I am outside of the classroom. And the first one of those was how many of the 195 sovereign nations have I visited to, since I told you I like to travel. And that always sparked some interest. And so I was actually amazed myself when I counted up that it was 54. I actually have 2 dogs now. So I have Doogie, who I've had for 2 years. And in December, I adopted a new baby. She's also about 2. They're both rescue dogs, and her name is Roxy. I was never in FFA because we did not have girls in FFA when I was in high school at that time. But I was involved in FHA, in the Future Homemakers of America, and I was very involved in 4-H. What's the only continent that I've never visited? It's on my bucket list. I've never been to Australia. So I have been to Antarctica, and I've been able to see the penguins. And this past summer, I did a tiger photo safari. That was fun. I also asked them how many teaching and research awards that I've received, and I've been very blessed to have been recognized in my profession. So that's something like 15 or 16. And then just as kind of a fun multiple choice question, again, just to see some of my interests, I give them an opportunity to guess on a multiple choice question of which of the following means of transportation that I've never experienced. And that always raises a little fun and a little discussion. But I have done all of those. I have been to Rome, but I've never been to Rome on moped. So that's the answer to that. So the next slide shows a picture of me as a little girl. And so I wanted to just to show to you that I come from very humble, basic middle class background. I grew up in northeastern Ohio, and so the next slide shows you some of the places that I've been able to travel. And so, you know, so how does a little girl from rural Ohio get to be a world traveler, get to be a professor at a university, and get to be engaged in a lot of wild and exciting and fun things? Because I think that's one of the philosophies that I want to share with you is, you know, life is too short not to enjoy what you're doing and to have fun with it. And if you ever get to the point when you stop wanting to do or going to work or having fun, then you need to be looking for other opportunities. So in keeping with what Teresa asked me to do for your presentation, I came up with 10 different rules for spreading the power of optimism, or for just with the philosophy that life is good. And that slogan is not original. If you're a T-shirt fan, you probably know that there's a company that's called Life is Good that makes T-shirts and other products. And you know, I was really inspired by these guys because they were two brothers that started out of the back of a car, and they've expanded into a multi-billion-dollar business and that supports worldwide charities and activities. And it just goes to show you, with their theme of the power of optimism, what is possible. And I wanted to have rule number 1 of find the right fit, because I don't know about you, but I get really frustrating in shopping for T-shirts. It's like they're too long, they're too short, they're too big, they're too small, they shrink, they fit perfect, and then you wash them and they shrink. And I don't think I'm not washing them properly. But, I have found that with the Life is Good T-shirts, and I'm not being paid to promote their brand, but if I purchase one of those, they fit right. And so if something is right, you want to stick to it. And I think that's very important philosophy of find the right fit, whether it is your current position, whether it's the classes that you teach, your personal interests, your professional interests, and most definitely your research interests. You want to find the right fit. So if you look at the next slide, you'll see, what are some things that will assist you in finding the right fit? Well, first of all, what is it you like to do? Okay, and we all know that we're probably more energetic and more enthusiastic when we do things that we like to do. So we find our strengths, we find our talents, we find our skills, and I think we know what those are, but sometimes we need to give ourselves credit for hidden talents. Oh, I'm not very good at that. Oh, yes, you are. And pay attention to our colleagues and our friends who share with that. But at the same time, I hope to encourage you to, what are some areas that you need or want to develop? Because while I'm encouraging you to do what you like to do, at times we all have options in our careers and our personal lives where there's things that we have to do that may not be the top of our priority list, but we still need to do them. So what are some areas that you want to develop or you need to develop to help you become more confident? And then you need to figure out ways that you will accomplish that. How can you do that? Is there some workshop or in-service training? We have a teaching academy on our campus that offers, workshops and courses on a regular basis. And, those are just opportunities, conferences, okay? And how much do your personal interests match your professional interests? I think if to really truly be happy, you find a way to blend things that you are good at and that you enjoy. So, the lesson in find the right fit is like what you do, okay? And also do whatever you need to do to become confident and comfortable in that skill, okay? So rule number 2 then is never say never, okay? And I'm sure all of us have been in a position where we said, I'm never going to do that, and it's come around, and it's like, oops, okay, I said I'd never do that, and here I am, and that you're doing it. But I want to encourage you to always leave the door of opportunity open, I think it was my grandmother, and it's a famous saying, but, when a door closes, God opens the window. But, never close the door yourself. Leave all the opportunities available. I say never say never. My students, my colleagues laugh at me when I tell them the story that the 2 things that I was never going to do was I was never going to be a teacher, and I was never going to work in extension, okay? Reasons behind that. I grew up in a small rural community, K through 12 in one building. My mom was the secretary to the superintendent of schools. Okay? I knew every political event and activity that happened and all the things that went wrong in that school system growing up, and I thought, why do I want a career that has to deal with all this politics and all this uncomfortable stuff when teachers just can't teach and they have to deal with this? I was a long-term 4-H member, and I benefited from that experience greatly. But I saw the wacky, crazy hours that those extension people did. And it's like, I don't want to do that. I want, the idealism of youth. I got my degree and I was ready for the world. The world wasn't quite ready for me. And so my goal was then I have 2 degrees in home economics, or now family consumer science, and I really wanted to work in one of the test kitchens. That was my ideal goal. But as I mentioned, the world wasn't quite ready for me yet. So it's like, okay, so if I'm not going to teach and I'm not going to work in extension and I can't get my dream job, what am I going to do? I've got to eat. I've got to live. So I thought, well, I'll just go back to school. Of course, the answer that we do with everything. And I decided to get my master's. And during my master's, I did an extension internship. And I, of course, loved it, which was not surprising given my background and my history. But I didn't have my master's completed. In Ohio, you did have to have your master's. And so that's how I got my first job in upstate New York, in Saratoga, New York. They would hire you without your master's completed. And since I was living at home while I was doing my master's, I was ready to be independent. So, take the word can't out of your vocabulary. This internship came up unexpectedly. I was working with my advisor. What are we going to do? You don't have your dream job, so what are some options that you can try to get you some experiences? And you know what, folks? I found my niche. I absolutely, positively loved, being an extension agent. And the only reason that I moved from New York to Wyoming, where I went to the state 4-H staff, is that I was looking for innovation, and I was looking for excitement. And 4-H is pretty exciting, but we were on a cyclical calendar, and so I got pretty comfortable with what I was doing on a regular basis, and I needed to be challenged. And so by taking a new position, I was able to do that. I also said, oh no, I'm never going to do a PhD. When I completed my master's, I was done with my education. That's where I wanted to be. But earlier I mentioned this leadership program that I was engaged in while in Wyoming, and the goal was to promote extension professionals from within, and they were looking at extension state 4-H directors and extension leaders, etc., and they wanted you to get an advanced degree. And so ultimately I did, and then I've ended up here at New Mexico State University. So my never say never, I have the PhD, I am teaching, and I'm teaching classes about extension after having been an extension professional for over 12 to 15 years. So, never say never, just keep all those doors and windows open. Rule number 3 goes a little bit back to rule number 1, but it's actually the slogan of the Life is Good gear that they produce. And it's do what you like and like what you do, okay? And I just think that's so important. I had a very, very happy childhood, but it was very blue collar, middle class. I only have 2 cousins that went on to get an advanced degree. Many of my cousins and things never even advanced beyond high school as a choice, and there's nothing wrong with that, but a lot of blue-collar work. But I also saw that they didn't really like their work. It was a means to an end, and it kind of gave new perspective to the TGIF. Thank goodness it's Friday, because they lived for the weekends so that they could enjoy the things that they like to do. And I mentioned in my bio that I've been fortunate to have been recognized by peers and colleagues with different teaching awards and things. And I remember in one of my acknowledgments of one of those awards, and I still feel that today, and I hope everyone who goes to work feels that way, is that I can't imagine going to work and not liking what I do. So, what I'm encouraging you to do is to find your niche. What is it? What you're good at? What do you like to do? When I came to NMSU 21 years ago, part of my responsibility was working with students interested in an extension as a career. And so I use my experience and knowledge to revise the extension curriculum here at NMSU. I also discovered that there really wasn't an extension textbook out there. And so ultimately, some of you may know that I'm the first author of the textbook Education Through Cooperative Extension, which we're now in our 3rd edition, and that all revolved around my love, my belated love for extension that I was never going to pursue, and to do that. And so, you know, if you look at that, what is it that you like to do? And I put down a list of some of the things that I like to do. You know, I was pretty scared as a new graduate and not being a strong researcher. I'd done my research as a doctoral student, but I found out my first year at NMSU I was teaching research methods, and it scared the heck out of me. But you know what? I did it, and it went well, and I've been doing it ever since. I'm very interested in international travel and international development. Volunteer management is another thing that I do, and I've tried to find ways to make that connection between the personal and the professional. Sometimes you know what you like to do and what you want to do. Sometimes you learn when you give it a try, and so that goes back to that previous rule of take can't out of your vocabulary. So rule number 4 is seek help. Okay, you know, if you are a new faculty member, and we can define new in a couple ways. New is that maybe you're a recent graduate and you are just starting a professional career, or a new professional career, a different career. New might be that you're in a new position at a different institution. Okay, seek help. There are so many people out there that believe in you and support in you. There are family, there are friends, there's your coworkers. Keep them close, because when you're having one of those days where, maybe even occasionally one of those weeks where nothing seems to go right, okay, they're your support system, okay? I have been extremely fortunate in that I have had several mentors in every position that I've been in. And, you know, one of my realities is I keep in touch with those people. I still have people from friends as well as professional colleagues from Saratoga, New York that I keep in touch with, from Laramie, Wyoming, from grad school, etc. So, you know, find a mentor, keep your support system, and if someone doesn't offer, then ask them to be your mentor. You know, go out and seek that help. Don't wait for them to come to you. You know, that's one of my goals as a senior faculty member, is I definitely try to make myself available to new or junior faculty member if they want it. You know, if they choose they don't want it, that's fine, but I try to encourage them to come to me with questions. If they want help on research or policy issues, you know, I have the experience, I've been here, and I feel that's an important role. But you got to be afraid not to ask, okay? The other thing is that distance shouldn't be an issue in finding a mentor. If there's not someone in the office next to you, or down the hall, or in the next building, find someone that has a common interest within our profession, and there are many. And I still keep in touch with friends from a distance. You know, we're doing this seminar virtually. With technology today, there is absolutely no reason or no excuse even for not reaching out and staying in touch. I'm going to share with you a little bit later about some international work that I do, and I'm in the middle of Uganda with maybe a couple hours of internet and electricity a day, and I'm getting a request for someone who needs some help. So it's, you know, we are very much a small world, very interconnected. So don't let distance be an issue. My 5th rule is to accept help. Okay, so rule number 4 is seek help, and don't be afraid to ask for help, but also to accept it. You know, when someone offers it, you know, I've always found it interesting that when we have our recent graduates and twice a year, they always say, like, I'm not ready, I don't know everything. And it's like, I've been a professional a number of years, and I don't know everything either. And so there's sort of this feeling or expectation that when they graduate, they have to know everything, or when you start a new position, you have to know everything. You don't. And I don't after 30 years of professional experiences in different roles. So don't be afraid to accept help, okay? Don't be shy, okay? Offer help when you can do it, but accept help from others. Find some common ground, find some areas that you want to work on. It might be research, okay? The majority, I've done some individual research, but a lot of the research that I have done is collaborative efforts. Dr. Dorme and I have done research on youth leadership life skills development. That was completed, I believe, in 1997, and in the time since, the 15 years since, that instrument has been used extensively in research related to youth and development. I've also collaborated with him on adult organizations in Ag Ed. I've collaborated with Dr. Billy Foster from Tennessee Tech when she was at U of A on women in agriculture. I collaborate with grad students. As a faculty member, you have this opportunity as well as this privilege to work with graduate students on research that they're doing. So there's been several projects that, as an advisor, that I've worked with my students. It's not related to just your colleagues. I have done some research and in the process of doing some research with the New Mexico Cooperative Extension Service. And it's a questionnaire that deals with the organization, the values of the organization and the people employed in that. I can do that because I have a love and a passion and understanding of Extension, but I'm not an employee of Extension at New Mexico State. I work very closely with the agents, but I'm not an employee. So therefore, I have credibility in collecting the data because none of their deans or their directors will ever see any of the raw data, and they can be as truthful as they want with that. So that's an advantage. I'm also working with colleagues from other institutions on projects, including a project called Reducing AIDS Stigma Through Income Generation with a faculty member from the University of New Mexico. So collaborate with others. Don't hesitate to ask. So collaborate with research. I've collaborated with writing. I've mentioned the extension book. And there's 2 original authors left on that. We started out in 4, I think, in 1995. And Donna Graham and I are the 2 remaining authors with that, but we've added other collaborators. Something wasn't available, so we created it. And we looked at people who were teaching extension-related classes and had a commitment and would use that book and value that effort. Also on grants and securing funding. I think everyone today is pretty aware of the importance and the necessity for external funding. And so I've been involved in several grant projects. They're not all funded, but you still have to try and make the effort. I mentioned to you just recently that I'm, keeping things at a distance, and that I was in Uganda. We were trying to put a grant together for a project through USAID, and I get this frantic email saying, I need this by such and such a date, whatever. And it's like, well, I hope the electricity lasts long enough that I can compile a response and get it, back to the person who wanted it so that we could meet our deadline for the grant. But again, I encourage you, as you're looking at funding and you're looking at opportunities, find out what your colleagues are doing. I have a 30% research appointment here at NMSU, so I get funding through our Ag Experiment Stations and Hatch Fund. I've had projects funded through U.S. Department of Agriculture. We submitted funding to USAID, to iCraft, which is an irrigation, which is a collaboration with someone in our plant and environmental science. I am not an irrigation scientist, I can assure you that. But what is really exciting right now, and folks, this is where those of us in agriculture, education, leadership, and extension communications have a vital role, is that a lot of the applied scientists are now realizing they need a social scientist as part of their project. So it's not just about setting up an irrigation system. How do we train extension workers, or how do we train the local people to be able to use them and to be able to maintain them and continue on and use them effectively. So, I was brought in on this grant because, number one, I had done some international travel and this was going to be done in Africa, but also because of my social science research background and interest and my extension background. So, we are extremely blessed in agriculture and extension education, leadership communication, because we have extremely valuable skills to the rest of the world, and that's a real emphasis in grant writing now. They want to see that people connection, they want to see that social science side of it. So again, collaborate with others and use your skills. Okay, just an experience point about grants and projects. This is some advice that I got from Miley Gonzalez, who was my first department chair here at NMSU. Some of you know Miley because he was also an undersecretary at USDA for a number of years. And Miley's a very prolific grant writer and very successful grant writer. And his philosophy was it takes just as much time and effort to write a grant for $1 million as it does for $1,000. Or $10,000. So think big. You're going to put the time and effort into it. So go for the big bucks. However, I also want you to realize that you can make a difference. You do not need to have a lot of money, that you can make a difference on a small amount of money. So one of the international projects that I work with is called Life Stitches, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that one a little bit more later on. But Life Stitches is a project that I work on in Uganda, and we essentially operate on around $25,000 US a year. And that's because Dr. Ganak, the start of this program, and an individual that I collaborate with, who's an emergency room physician, we donate our travel, or we get, or in my case, I donate it or get some support from NMSU to work on this project. But we don't charge travel expenses. All of the funds go to support the project itself. And I'll talk about that a little bit more with that. Okay, so we told you to find a mentor. We told you to accept help. Rule number 6 is to offer help, okay? One of the things that I just had, before coming in here today, I was having a conversation with one of our undergraduate students who was writing her teaching philosophy for a class assignment, and I think most of us have been there. And I said, well, Haley, one of my philosophies that I try to share with my students at the beginning of every semester, is that I expect to learn as much from my students in a given semester as I hope that they learn from me and that they learn from each other. And we can do that when we create an environment that's open and comfortable and people are willing to share. And so my advice to you is that when it's your turn, be there for others. And you don't have to wait till you've been at some place 21 years to offer that help, okay? You can be a mentor. You can be a mentor to a colleague who started at the same time as you, to, someone who started after you. You mentor your students. You want to make sure that you give others a chance to have the opportunity to grow and experience. If you've allowed others to give you that chance and be a mentor to you, then, pay it forward, okay? So there's lots of ways that you can offer help, again, through being a mentor to students and faculty, serving on committees. We encourage our junior faculty members to start serving on, well, we're a small department, so to spread the load out, we want them to get started on committees, maybe not the university-wide full-blown outcomes assessment committee, but a committee to get started with that. Be part of your department. What can you do to make a difference in your department? Something's helped, raise your hand. Yes, I'll do it, or I'll do it with someone, and you learn and you grow. So it's very, very important for you to find help, to seek help, and to accept help. But it's really, really important for you also to give back and to offer help. You're paying it forward, you're returning the favor, and I just know how important that was to me. I mentioned, when I graduated with my doctorate and I ended up teaching research methods, I wasn't the most confident researcher my first year as a faculty member, but Dr. Dormady, that some of you know, is my colleague and has been my colleague for 21 years, said, Brenda, let's collaborate together on this project. And, he helped me develop my research skills, my publishing skills, but most importantly, helped me identify and develop confidence in myself and my abilities. And I vowed, because several people had done that for me, that was one of the things that was important for me to try to do for others. So don't be afraid to offer help. Okay. Rule number 7, don't be afraid to reinvent yourself. Okay. I think probably at your stage in your careers, all of you realize that situations change, life change, whether it's personal changes or professional changes. Things don't stay the same. Situations change, and we have to learn to adapt to those changes. Sometimes we change things because we want to. We offer to take on a new course. We offer to take on a new project, write a new grant, and that's going to bring about change in your life, because if those are accepted, you have accepted the responsibility for those. Sometimes change occurs whether we want it to or not. And the difference occurs in your future of whether, the old cliche of whether you make lemons or lemonade. I have had experiences in my life that have been extremely positive, and I've chosen that change, to embrace it. I've had some times when it's been foisted upon me, if that's the right word, where, there were some periods professionally, some things were extremely difficult because maybe there were some huge philosophical differences between an administrator or other colleagues in the department. But you have to decide what you're going to do. Had a situation where, some of the responsibilities that I had that I enjoyed, an interim person decided to mix things up, and, I was no longer had responsibilities for those areas, and that was extremely frustrating and disappointing to me, because they were things I were good at and things that I really enjoyed. So, how do you handle that? Well, I found out that if I fought it, I was going to be in competition with them, and that was not a desirable thing. So I reinvented myself. It's like, okay, so what else do I enjoy, and how can I make a meaningful contribution? What I chose to do at that point is to change my attitude, saying like, okay, I'm not going to win this battle, but how can I win the war? How can I be successful, still enjoy coming to work today? So, the next slide shows some of the things that I chose to do at that particular point in my career. One of the things that I enjoy doing personally was international travel. And it's like, how can I turn that in to a win-win situation for me and reinvent myself? I created a new course here at NMSU on international development. We had lots of courses in the university that had an international focus, but they were very specialized. We had international communications, or we had international business. We didn't really have an overview course on international development, and I'll be doing that for the 3rd time coming up, which I'm really excited about. I get students from all over campus in the class, and it's a way for me to combine, it's a way for me to combine my personal love of international opportunities and experiences with a professional one. I also became, I had been a member, but I became more involved in AIAE, the Association for International Ag and Extension Education, and have taken on the role as journal editor. So I'm in my final year as I was 2 years as managing editor, and my final year as the executive editor in that role. We had a donor. Another way that I took on some responsibilities as we had a donor that was providing a project called ServiceLearning for Women, and she had the funds to bring 4 women from Africa over to NMSU. They were here for a month, and she needed someone who was local at NMSU that could coordinate the program. And so for 2 years now, I've been the coordinator of that project. And this is all on load. I either made it part of load or found ways to work it into my job, or did it in addition to, because it was ways that I needed to reinvent myself. So this program is extremely successful. We're applying for another grant. We've gotten major support from the president and provost at our universities, and it's just been an exciting endeavor to coordinate the entire educational program for these women. And then my final program is a way of reinventing myself, is the Life Stitches Uganda program, which I previously mentioned. And in this program, we work with women in Uganda who are HIV positive, with the idea of preventing transmission between mother and child. And you might say, well, why would that even be an issue? But the issue in Uganda and many African countries is that it's a polygamous society, so women may have contracted the disease from their spouse who will not admit that. But if they do contract it, they may lose all family and community support and therefore have no means of income. So the choice becomes, do I live with the disease and pass this on to my unborn child, knowing we're both going to die, and have support, a place to live, and food to eat, or do I lead the program and take the prophylactic drugs and treatment for my child, and knowing that we can have a better life, but we have no income. So we created an income generating project for these women. And I've made 2 trips to Uganda. I'll be going back in May, and I'm going to be taking over as the project director for our expanded project with that. So, you just want to keep things open and optional for everybody that's involved. And so I've been a co-PI on Life Stitches, as well as data collection and project management. Okay, my number 8 rule is to give yourself roses, okay? Why did I say that? It's, well, if you could walk into my office and you could see some plaques or certificates on the wall, and you can see some, if you really want to go through my file cabinets, you can see some that, or home office, you'll see some that aren't on the walls, that aren't hanging. And those are really nice, and I think we all appreciate being appreciated and valued. But don't wait on someone else to give you the recognition. You work hard, you do what you need to do to be successful, and you need to treat yourself, okay? I'm a firm believer in that. And while I am very appreciative, and we all need that attaboy or that attagirl on the back from someone else and that validation, we also need to feel good about yourself. And if we're just waiting on someone else to give that to us, then we're not being true to ourselves. So what I want to do is say, give yourself roses. We have kind of a fun thing in our college, in our horticulture department. The flower judging team every Wednesday morning sells flowers, and you can even have them arrange them. You can buy the cut flowers and arrange them yourself, or they will make an arrangement for you. And it's much cheaper than the florist, but it gives them money to earn for their judging trips. And then it gives them practice at their goal. And so, it's really fun, to just buy a small arrangement and have fresh flowers on your desk every week. That's something that here I'm lucky that I can do. But what do you like to do? What makes you feel good? Take a day and go to the spa. Go shopping. Take a leisure day with a friend and do something. Whatever it is that makes you happy, find a way to do that. And it's also a wonderful stress reliever. I wish I could bottle up the feeling, but I think all of us have been in this situation that when we are pushed for deadlines, it's sort of like the students that stay up all night. We just push, where if we would just step back from it once in a while, then we can take a breath, we can hit it again when we come back to it with a renewed vigor. Well, the same thing about treating yourself. Reward yourself. My philosophy is work hard and play hard. I believe that in my personal life. I will give it my all. But when I take a break, I take a break, and I really try to renew and to readjust. So, you need to find a balance. And again, a couple of these quotes are from the Life is Good website. Play is so much of who we are and how we engage in the world. And also life should be lived with play. And I believe that. I think we all need to find that balance in our lives. Okay? Rule number 9 is similar to some other things that we talked about with collaboration, but rule number 9 is network. Okay? You need to get involved. And, I feel like I'm probably preaching to the choir because I think you are all very involved and engaged individuals. But there's many ways that you can get involved. Join professional associations. Know who your colleagues are. They're related to your personal interests and your professional interests. Very, very important aspect. Know your community. What are some ways that you can network with individuals in your community, whether they can help you with classes or projects or activities? What can you give back to them? We talked about the lack of spare time earlier, but volunteer. It's another good way to feel like you are making a difference and to know who's in your community. In one of my classes, when I talk about the concept of networking, I use this quote that says, "Where you are tomorrow may well depend on who you meet tonight." And we should never, never underestimate the power of networking. I had a colleague from Wyoming, and his daughter was doing some work at the National 4-H Center. And her sister had come to visit her, and they were going to, she was actually looking for full-time work in business and marketing, but she was doing an internship at the National 4-H Center. And her sister came to visit her, and they went to a dinner theater one evening, and it was one of those where they served it family style, so you were sitting with other people. As the conversation evolved, she found out she was sitting with the CEO of McCormick Schilling Spices. And, my friend's daughter said, "Oh, I'm looking, I'm doing this internship, but I'm looking for work." And he said, "Send me a resume." And believe it or not, she did get the job. And that was a chance encounter of just meeting someone that they hadn't planned on. So you never know who you're going to meet, and you're only going to meet them if you get out there and do things. My final rule or recommendation for you is to spread optimism. Okay, a long time ago, I came across a little poem, and it was dedicated to Superwoman, who, when you know you're not, but you think you should be. And the reality of it is that we can't be all things to all people. We try awfully hard. Most of that's a very, very, very hard lesson to learn, is that we can't be all things to all people. But you need to find your niche, you need to find your balance, and you need to do that well and not, again, try to do everything for everyone. But remember that you are someone too, and so you need to do things for yourself. So, I guess I just want to conclude today by just leaving you with a few what I call Brenda-isms. Okay, be yourself. No one else is in the business of you. You are a unique individual, and that's who people like and respect you for being. So be yourself. Don't live your life with regrets. We've sort of heard the don't should upon yourself. I should have done this, I should have done that. So try not to live with your life in regrets. Look forwards, not backwards. One of the things hanging in my office was a poster that I received as a graduation gift for my PhD, and it's got the little hobo with his knapsack, and the road splits, and one is don't look backwards, and the other is move forward. So don't look backwards. Don't hide, but do seek. Okay. Don't wait for people to come to you. Go for what you want. And there's a difference between being assertive and aggressive. I think we know that. But don't just sit there. Don't sit there. Go seek it out. Start each day with a smile. It sets the tone for the day. Okay. Give back. Close the circle of kindness. Don't, if something does something kind for you, or even if they don't, pay it forward with that. Focus what is right. Try to reduce negativity. It is so easy for all of us to kind of get caught up when something's wrong, as to do the whining, the moaning, and complaining. And it's really, really easy then when you're surrounded by that to kind of take on that persona. And, I want you to try to guard yourself from that. We all need to vent at times. We all need sometimes we need to listen to others vent, but trying not to get caught up in it. And so one of the ways I try to do that is I keep a little sign right by my desk where I can see it all the time that says PACE, P-A-C-E. And PACE means positive attitude changes everything. And no, I am not perfect. I have my shares of bad days and my times where I just am frustrated and need to vent. But I try to minimize that or try to reduce that and circle it around saying like, I don't like being around grumpy people, and if I'm grumpy, then people are going to be around me. I'll share one quick little anecdote. I've traveled internationally quite a bit, and I've lost, like most people, I've lost my luggage. I've lost them in the extremes. I was in Egypt where it was 110, and Antarctica. And, with very little time to do much shopping and stuff before the adventure began. And I remember one couple saying to me on the Antarctica trip, they're saying, I can't believe that you're taking this so well. And my response was, I'm not in control. I can't change the circumstances. My being angry and upset is not going to make my luggage get here in time before we leave. And if I choose to exhibit that behavior, then why would you want to spend time with me? I don't like being around grumpy people. And so I just try to keep that in mind with that. So just a couple final thoughts. And again, these go back to the Life is Good philosophy. Life is Good company believes in three major premises: simplicity, humor, and humility. And, and we look at simplicity, life can be complex enough, so we don't need to add to it. My mom has been widowed for about 3 years now, and she'll say like, well, I'm just worrying about this. I'm saying, why? There's nothing you can do about it. So, let's worry about things, or let's concentrate or focus on things that we have control over. Let's not worry about that, because it doesn't matter that your neighbor did this or whatnot. Humor, we all know laughter is a great medicine. And so we need to be able to laugh with others, not at others, but we need to be able to laugh at ourselves or with ourselves. And humility, I think, is something that's very important for all of us. So, as I part with you today, I encourage you to appreciate what you have, to value others, and don't take situations or people for granted. And I just wish you all the best. And if anyone has any questions or anyone feels like they want to contact me at some point, I've provided you my contact information. So thank you for allowing me just to share probably more experience than wisdom, but I wish you all the best in your daily and success and professional and personal lives.
Brenda, thank you very much for providing that. In fact, some of your personal examples brought those to life. Now, if we could just all put those into practice, that would be great. Sometimes when I listen, I think, oh my goodness, if we could just do all these things at once. So thank you so much for sharing that with our virtual expert series.
Well, you're welcome, and I'm certainly not perfect. So, I try to live by my own rules. I think we all have ways that we can grow and improve, including myself.
Great. Well, thank you so much. And again, thank you for sharing your thoughts with us.
My pleasure.